Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Insane Karen parks in front of a train. After that, am I the jerk for firing my vet after the way the nurse spoke to me? And after that, told to change one student's grade, so I changed them all. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen doesn't get to park in front of a train.
You mean like Marty at the end of Back to the Future 3?
So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Insane Karen parks in front of a train. This isn't my story. My dad is friends with a train engineer and he would always be super nice to me and my family, and he told us this insane crazy story. Info you will need to know. So this story is about a train engineer, and as everyone knows, trains can't stop on a dime. But the important info you will need to know is about wheel slips. Sometimes trains can have a failed start or stop and slide across the track because the wheels lose traction. If a train goes into a wheel slip while stopping, it's extremely difficult to stop. Wheel slips are usually caused by weight distribution or not being able to gain traction. If a train has too much weight, it can go into a wheel slip easily, so the people who load the train need to make sure that it's just the right amount of weight distribution. On to the story. So let's call my dad's friend Tom. Tom was on his normal route, and in the conductor's seat is someone we will call Bill. Tom was going around 70 miles per hour and was about to come up on a crossing. In the distance, you could see a car on the crossing. He thought that the arms hadn't gone down yet, and cars were still crossing, as it was still a ways away. As he got closer, he noticed a car was parked on the crossing, and a woman and her kid were standing right beside it on the tracks, holding up a sign that Tom couldn't read. But he immediately knew this was bad. He slammed on the emergency brakes and blew the horn as loud as he could to try and warn the woman. As it got closer and closer, she wouldn't budge. But then the train went into an unexpected wheel slip. I'll explain why after. And now they were sliding at a high velocity and heading straight towards the mom and presumably her son. Bill and Tom were panicking, letting trains nearby know what was going on. People who saw the occasion were yelling at the woman and her kid. And as they were approaching her, people realized she wasn't going to budge due to what her sign stated. People ran and came and pushed her out of the way. Then a few moments later, Tom and Bill slammed into the car, and since they were in a wheel slip, they couldn't slow down. Luckily, after a bit, Bill and Tom managed to gain traction again and stopped 2.5 miles later. Bill and Tom were really scared about what had happened, and despite their protocol, they jumped out of the engine and ran to see if her and her kid were okay. Luckily, they knew they would be there because the police would need to ask questions. After apparently, according to Tom, what seemed like forever, they finally made it back to the crossing. They found the mom and her kid, and she wasn't there because she was stuck, she was protesting. The entitled mom proceeded to have a conversation like this.
Finally. Now, I want you to meet my son. He wants a ride in your train.
Tom, what? Entitled kid,
I want to be a train driver. Can I go pull the horn?
Tom, sorry kid, no, we can't allow that.
Let him do it. He's just curious. Besides, you owe us one since you attempted to hurt us.
Tom, why's that? Before entitled mom could proceed to yell at Tom, Bill found the sign and told Tom to read what it said. The sign stated, "Stop crashing into cars because you're too lazy to stop and enjoy the fun of demolition. Embrace the new generation." Tom, what are you trying to say? Entitled mom,
The whole thing about trains can't stop on a dime is an old wives' tale. Admit it, you don't stop because you enjoy crashing into cars.
Tom, what? No, we don't stop because we can't stop. The weight.
I've heard it all before, and I'm tired of being lied to.
Tom, okay, well, it's not a lie. Besides, a crash like this creates a huge inconvenience for our schedule, and we have to try to work around this. We don't do it for fun. What do you mean by embrace the new generation? Karen,
I've tried to stop so many trains time and time before because my boy wants to be able to blow the horn and see what the inside looks like. He wants to be a train driver. He wants to be a train driver when he grows up too. You guys are so lazy, you just wave. Too selfish to let the new generation be excited to be a train driver. You guys are so selfish.
Tom, ma'am, if we could, we would. I wouldn't have minded. But you must understand that everyone is on a tight schedule. Stopping can put a lot of people in danger because if we aren't in a siding at a specific time, it can delay schedules and trains can accidentally be led onto the line you're on and can cause a head-on collision.
Oh, shut up. You guys aren't on a tight schedule. I've been waiting here almost all day, and it took forever to see a train. We got so bored, and we needed to find things to do. You know how many people I had to tell off? I got so many questions about why I was there. I said I was just putting coins on the track. Each time someone came by, I had to look busy. We put a lot of coins on there. Oh, I need to check them and go see how they turned out.
Tom's and Bill's faces grew red with anger. Tom,
You did what? You did what?
Karen,
Me and my son put coins on the track. Is there a problem?
Tom, how many?
I lost count. We put so many on.
Tom was furious because he realized why he went into the unexpected wheel slip. There were so many coins and he was traveling so fast that the train lost traction and they went into the wheel slip that put many in danger. Tom screamed and yelled at the woman and asked how she could be so stupid. Tom told the officers what had happened and she was charged for trespassing and she committed a felony by making her car get hit on purpose. So Karen had a lot of bills to pay and spent just a small time in the slammer, and her entitled kid didn't get what he wanted. Everybody was okay, but man, this story when Tom told my family made us drop our jaws, and I hope it did the same for you. Have you ever been on a train? And if so, did you like it? Please let us know.
I went on a train in the mountains of California once. I was really disappointed at how slow it went.
Am I the jerk for firing my vet after the way the nurse spoke to me? I, 29 female, pay $35 per month for an insurance plan for my cat, who's 2 female. This includes a basic checkup every 6 months. Her appointment was scheduled for today at 12 p.m. While I was waiting to check her in, it was me, one guy in front of me, and the girl at the front desk. A nurse came out from the back and told the girl at the front desk, "Hey, just a heads up, everybody went on their lunch break, just so you know." My cat has anxiety, so when I booked her appointment, they assured me that she'd be in and out. So I said, if no one is here, should I wait to come back later to drop my cat off? The nurse shot daggers at me and said bluntly, "This conversation doesn't concern you." I was kind of in shock because I didn't think I'd asked anything too crazy. I said, "I'm just confused, since I don't want to drop her off if she's just going to sit in a room." The nurse said, "We were having a separate conversation. She'll be fine." I have pretty bad anxiety myself and wasn't here to argue, just to advocate for my cat. So I meekly said, "Okay," and I figured that was that. Well, this nurse gives me an up-down look, turns around and walks into the back. The door hasn't even swung shut yet, and I could hear her trashing me to her other nurses. She's laughing and saying, "You guys, there's this crazy lady at the front with her cat," and then the door swung closed. This is where I might be the jerk, because I shut down and told the girl checking me in I'm not letting my cat go back there, unless that person is not in the room, or if I can go back there with my cat. If she talks to me like that, how am I supposed to trust her to give the best care for my cat, who can't speak up for herself? I also said I wanted to make a complaint. I asked for a business card for a manager. The front desk girl gave me a card and I called the number. The front desk rang. She put it on hold and looked sheepish. I asked if this was the number for the manager or for the store. She admitted it was for the store. At this point, my cat is howling in her carrier. We had driven all this way and she was so shaken up, so sunken cost fallacy. I said I'd stay for the appointment if I could come in the room with her and make sure she was safe. The front desk girl finally admitted, "Well, no one is here. They're at lunch, so it would be for at least an hour." So the nurse had been lying about my cat being taken care of all along. I didn't want to argue anymore, so I said I wanted to reschedule for a time I could be in the room. She booked me for next week. Afterwards, I called my mom, and she told me I definitely shouldn't go back, but I also shouldn't have threatened to make a complaint to the manager and be a Karen. So I'm planning to call back this week and cancel my appointment and my insurance and take my business elsewhere. I think I was sticking up for my baby, but I could just be a crazy cat lady causing issues when I could have just left. So, am I the jerk? Listen to your mom about not going back, but in addition to making a complaint, also write a review. Let other people know about their supposed business model of laughing and lying to their customers. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. The nurse said that comment knowing you would still be able to hear her, so that's a very weird bullying tactic. Then the front desk nurse gave you the wrong number purposefully to stop your complaint. Then you found out you were justified in your concerns because it would in fact be a long wait for your cat by themselves because everyone was on lunch. Completely, they're the jerks in this situation. Also, why would they have an appointment at 12 p.m. when the whole staff goes to lunch? This is so bizarre. Not the jerk. I would never go back there either. They dropped the ball several times. 1. Agreeing to give your cat a quick appointment and not following through. 2. Speaking rudely to you when you express your concerns. And 3. Giving you the wrong number to make a complaint. Plus, I've never heard of a store or service that lets all the workers take a break for an hour at the same time without closing. I'd switch vets for that reason alone. Like, go ahead and shut down the store for an hour, but don't book appointments during your lunch break. This is ridiculous, and I can't believe the vet spoke so rudely to your very reasonable question. And the audacity to mock you for it. They are major jerks. Finally, I have a concern about what your mom said. I really hate that lately anyone who complains about anything is called a Karen. You are not a Karen. A Karen is someone who complains and yells at workers over petty things out of their control, like yelling at cashiers for not accepting an expired coupon. You wanted to talk to a manager to complain about one of their workers treating a customer very rudely and then mocking them. That's completely justified. So please switch vets and don't think of yourself as a crazy cat lady. If anything, you are kinder than you should have been. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the vet? Please let us know. I hope OP leaves as many reviews as they can. With staff that rude, no one should be going there. Told to change one student's grade, so I changed them all. I moved to a new state to take a high school teaching job in a rural town. I liked my fellow teachers and almost all of my students, but this was a small town with the usual assortment of outsized attitudes. One student was particularly lazy. Her parents both worked in the small school district, admin at the high school, teacher at the middle school. She rarely turned anything in on time, and what was turned in was generally rushed or incomplete, as if she had gotten the instructions secondhand. Somehow, though, she had straight A's in all of her classes. I quickly figured out why. When she turned in another late, incomplete assignment, and I very generously gave her a D, her overall grade in class dropped to a B. I was called in the next day to a meeting with the principal and both of her parents, who immediately complained I was being unfair and capricious with my grades. They accused me of not giving students the instructions, so I showed them the instruction paper which I passed out and went over in class. They accused me of not giving her specifically a copy, but I remember handing it to her and I told them why. She was making out with her boyfriend when I was trying to go over the instructions. They didn't like hearing that part. They accused me of not being clear with my deadline, but it was the second line of the directions. They accused me of not fairly grading her work, but when I showed them her work, they clearly hadn't seen it before and wondered whether I'd gotten assignments mixed up before I showed them her name on it. The principal asked me to change the grade in the gradebook. I asked about whether she'd have to redo the assignment first, but that was declined by her parents. I understand why my principal caved. It wasn't worth trying to fight two employees in a small, rural district already struggling to recruit people. So I went back to my classroom and changed every student's grade to a 100 in the gradebook. No special treatment. Even the ones who hadn't turned in a single thing got a perfect score. The fallout. Many students asked me why their grade changed, but I never addressed it. I would just brush them off by saying not to worry about it, though clearly rumors were spreading like wildfire in the small school, because even the secretary and the principal asked me about it later on. I only said that, yes, I changed her grade. The principal looked like he wanted to ask me about why I changed all of the grades, but he just shrugged and walked away. He never interfered in my gradebook after that. The student's parents transferred her out of my class, and her boyfriend also transferred a day later. No more PDA in my class, finally, so no complaints. Am I the jerk for buying a luxury watch instead of paying my fiance's parents back? I, 31 male, am in a relationship with a woman, Jen, who's 26. Jen and I have dated for 2 years now, and we got engaged 3 months ago. Neither Jen nor I are good with finances. In our city, this can't really be helped, seeing as everything is egregiously overpriced. But it is what it is, and we do the best we can. About a month ago, Jen and I decided to talk about our finances and savings, and so I brought up my online banking account to show her. In my checking account, I had a few $1,000s, but in my savings account, I had a bit over $8,000. Jen got super excited upon seeing that figure, saying we could use it to travel. I explained to Jen that this money was going towards a watch I wanted to buy. She responded with, and I quote, "Forget that," saying that she wanted to go to Europe with me. I immediately popped that balloon, as this was the result of me saving $150 to $250 a month for years. I was extremely clear. Europe was not going to happen. Jen got a bit upset, but finally I got her to drop the issue. About a week later, Jen came to me and said that I needed to come with her to a travel agent because she had made a down payment for a package deal to France. Having seen her finances, I knew that Jen didn't have the money. When I asked where she had come up with it, she said she borrowed it from her parents with the promise that she'd pay them back in about a week. Again, I was confused, but she said that the money I had in my account was more than enough to pay them back, and that instead of getting a stupid overpriced watch, I should make memories with her. I told her that she needed to go to the agency and beg for her money back, but she said it was too late. A few minutes later, I got in my car, drove to the watch store, and told the guy I talked to about half a dozen times about the watch that I was ready to buy. I paid in cash and came home. Then I showed Jen my watch and said, "That savings account now has a few $100 in it. Get your money back." She shrieked at me about it, and I told her that she had to go beg, cry, and get on her knees at the agency if that's what it took. Miraculously, she pulled it off and paid her parents back in full. But now she's incredibly angry and keeps telling me that it's my turn to go beg for my money back. Her parents are completely on her side and keep saying that going into a lifetime commitment, I don't need a luxury watch. Not sure about this one. I think I might have jumped the gun on that purchase, but I had already had my mind made up for years. Edit. I didn't think this was a financial advice board. I will include the following information because people here are incessantly focusing on how I spent my money. 1. I've maxed out my 401k every year since I was 23. In terms of retirement, my 20s were spent saving way more than the average American. 2. I spent the majority of my 20s also financially supporting my mentally ill sister. I no longer have to support her, and therefore I began dating Jen with marriage in mind. My question was about whether stranding Jen after her impulsive decision like that was a jerk move. It wasn't about whether I should keep more money in my savings account. If anyone here who has also maxed out their 401k throughout their 20s while supporting a family member would like to chime in, go ahead, but I don't really care. You say neither you nor your fiance are good with money and blame it on the high cost of living in your city. Well, that's not the reason you guys aren't good with money. You're not good with money because you impulse spend, fiance on the vacation, or you save for stupid things, you and the $8,000 watch. You didn't borrow the money from her parents, so you're not the jerk. That's all on her. But man, you need to grow up and treat your finances more maturely. Facts. OP is not the jerk for not paying her parents back, but you may want to call off the engagement. She has already showed you exactly who she is. Believe her. She wanted to go on an extravagant vacation with your money. Now let's address this lavish purchase. You really need to return it. Can you live in it? Can you drive around in it? Can you retire with it? How exactly does it serve you? That money could have been placed in a high-yield account, retirement fund, or you could have continued to save and purchase an apartment or home. That watch was a vanity purchase. You could have gotten a quality timepiece for $200 to $500 and saved the rest for your future. Lose the fiance, return the watch, take a financial literacy course, plan for your future one smart move at a time. OP already said he's maxed out his 401k every year since he was 23 years old. So he's not in a bad financial situation when it comes to retirement. He's totally allowed to make a few lavish purchases when he's saved money specifically for that reason without impacting his future. Sure, it's good to have an emergency savings fund, but we don't know details about if he even has one. And if he doesn't, he can start building one now. It's never too late to save. Everyone sucks here. Your girlfriend sucks for trying to spend your money for you without your agreement. You suck at spending that much money on a watch when you have no other savings and no other property. You're 31, OP. When are you going to start saving for retirement or a house? Just saying, we suck at finances, we live in an expensive city, doesn't work anymore. You're both adults, and you'll both suffer if you don't start saving for important things now. If you're bad at finances, get good. Take some classes, hire a financial advisor. Don't waste your money on stupid crap. Edit. After reading OP's edit, I still think he's a jerk. OP, you're the jerk for running out and spending the money just to say, forget you, to your girlfriend. Wasn't it enough that she was wrong and you didn't give her your money? You weren't going to buy the watch at that very moment before, so why did you have to do it now? To prove something? What were you proving? That you're in control of your own money? That's something a teenager does, not a grown man who is in control of his own money. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his fiancé? Please let us know.
Plot twist. It was an investment watch that will 10x in value over the next few years.
Don't want to pay my asking price? Okay. Years ago, I sold my first motorcycle. It was a good bike, but it was my first motorcycle. I had laid it down a couple of times doing stupid stuff, so it wasn't perfect. I took good care of it though, and always replaced damaged or scratched things because I didn't want it to look bad. Well, except for the left side of the engine. The sides of most motorcycle engines will often make contact with the ground and get scratched up if the bike slides on inside, which mine did on several occasions. I had replaced the stator cover before and didn't want to go through that again, even though it's only about a $120 part. Plus, the scrapes on the stator cover weren't that bad and I could live with them. So I list my bike for sale, show it to a few people, and along comes a dad with his young adult son. Now, the dad, being an older and wiser rider, riding for as many years as the moon has orbited planet Earth, knew he had the better end of the bargain. He was there looking at my first bike that had been gently crashed before, which I was fully upfront about. Easy bargain, right? I was pretty firm on my asking price for one simple reason. I was going to throw in all the brand new parts, accessories, and maintenance items I had accumulated for this bike. A couple of oil filters, case of oil, brake pads, and new stator cover. And even an inoperable engine, which still had many good parts on it. But if and only if they had paid my asking price. This was easily over $300 in parts, excluding the engine. The dad of the buyer played the bad cop in this scenario, pointing out things that he thought could give him some bargaining power, and then of course made a lower offer. I entertained the offer, but at the same time informed them of my conditions for getting the spare parts.
We don't need the spare parts.
Okay, I counteroffered, explaining that my asking price was already very competitive given the condition of my bike. We settled on $100 less than my asking price, so they left with only the bike and none of the parts. A few days go by, and the buyer reaches back out to me to ask if they can come by to pick up the stator cover for free to replace the scratched one that was on the bike. I replied with, "Sorry, I'm going to sell it to make up for the discount I gave you on the motorcycle." A replacement stator cover costs more than the $100 they saved on the purchase, but if they paid me that $100, they would have gotten the cover, along with supplies for the first oil change, around $80, brake pads, about $75, sprockets, equal to $90, plus a whole nother engine to tinker around with. The engine had catastrophically failed, so it wasn't worth much, but the parts on it are still expensive to buy new. Am I the jerk for offering a homeless person a loaf of bread? Today, I, 21 female, went to Target to get some groceries and saw a homeless person asking people, including me, for something to eat. I normally get super paranoid about safety living in the city and don't ever talk to someone I don't know. But today, I bought a loaf of bread and offered it to the person on the way out. Note, I didn't say a single word, but just physically held out the bread to offer if they wanted it. The person got super rude and condescending, saying what on earth would they eat it with, and then proceeded to call me stupid while making hand gestures. What struck me the most was that he was awfully rude to me while he would act in an appeasing way to other people passing by, even when they would just ignore him and move on. I don't know, I feel like it's a sign that the one time I go out of my comfort zone to help someone, it ended up like this. But to double check, did I do something wrong in any way? Edit. People are getting really offended that I offered this person a loaf of bread, as if I treated them like a duck or a dog. But I only offered them that because whenever I go hungry or am without money in between paychecks, I eat plain bread all the time. I don't mind being told I'm the jerk, but weren't like my intentions to be misinterpreted. I know I'm probably going to get downvoted for this, but soft, you're the jerk. What yourself and a lot of commenters lack, and frankly what the world lacks, is a realistic perspective of what being homeless is like in the first world nations, as well as all the things being homeless lacks. That bread is going to mold quickly without proper storage. A homeless person doesn't have the resources to properly store bread. This will be even worse now due to the heat wave that's been encompassing practically the entirety of the northern hemisphere. The bread will mold significantly faster. Junk food is better, and before you clutch your pearls about, "Oh, that's not healthy though," most healthy foods require a level of storage and prep homeless people do not have accessible to them. Junk food has preservatives that ensures it lasts. A bag of Doritos is going to last longer and provide more calorie intake than the bread will. Similarly, regarding comments about homelessness equaling hunger and that you'd rather give food than money, this is highly unrealistic. Not all homeless people are hungry, especially in larger cities. Food is a lot easier to come by, and there are plenty of organizations dedicated to feeding people. What a lot of organizations that serve homeless people are looking for are hygiene items and clothing. A large portion of homeless people also live in their cars and need money to pay for their cars, both in bills and gas. In some cities, homeless people and vehicles make up almost half the homeless population. Money is needed to pay for phones as well. Phones which are needed not only to keep in contact with friends and family, but are necessary to getting a job in our current world. Money is also needed to buy hygiene products and clothes. Money can also be used, and often is, for getting motels. Homeless shelters have limited space and are not always accessible. It's awesome you want to give to the homeless, more people should. However, it's important to keep in mind that they are ultimately homeless and don't have the resources to keep food properly stored. If you're going to give, and you certainly don't have to, try and think from the perspective of what a homeless person not only needs, but can store. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for firing an employee for stealing leftovers? My 27 female husband's of 3 years father is an entrepreneur who, among his businesses and numerous industries, has several sandwich shops spread out throughout 2 states. Last year, my husband and his dad opened a new location, and he and I were put in charge of being the ultimate decision makers regarding day-to-day operations of that location. My husband is the one with an MBA, and he has his hands full managing properties that his dad owns, so I've been the one who pays the most attention to details. While I trust the manager we hired, I sometimes go through the security camera footage of the store for extra assurance purposes. My husband never has the time to do so, but I can easily do so. Our shop is not open on Sundays, so inventory that we have has to be thrown out because it cannot be served on Monday. The other day, I realized that on one Saturday night, an employee who regularly closed was throwing out meats but would shove bread into a bag and presumably take it home. Another employee saw this happen and never reported it. I ended up confronting the other employee first, who has been there longer. She admitted it was true, but that she thought because it was peanuts compared to the bread and meats being thrown out, that this was somebody just trying to feed themselves. I confronted the employee who did it, and she said she was sorry, but she was a single mom, and that she thought it was going in the trash anyway. She also said that she wasn't making enough to not qualify for food stamps, but that it was still not enough with a growing kid and she often had to skip meals. I left that meeting angry that the employee didn't seem to understand she was essentially stealing. I called the manager and said that he should have made it clear that stealing was unacceptable and to fire her. He seemed dismayed and said that we should give her a warning and give her a chance to not do it again. But I was honestly done with it because we pay well for what she does and she cannot say her issues entitled her to get away with this. Am I the jerk? Be prepared for this to go public. Do you realize the headlines your restaurant is about to get? Local manager fires single mother for taking home unsellable bread, which would otherwise be thrown out because she can't afford to feed her kids on her pay. You're also about to lose the rest of your staff as well. I wouldn't be surprised if you have a mass walk-off. Hope your husband and father-in-law fire you for your cruelty and completely bad decision-making that's going to cause a whole lot of bad press and lost business. So let me get this straight. You'd rather throw away food than let someone eat it? You're the jerk for that alone. But also, define pay well. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is the employee? Please let us know.
Bruh, I just don't know how some people get so evil.
Karen destroyed my fish tank, so I fired her. I've had my cleaning service for roughly 3 years as my husband and I routinely work 12 plus hours a day and are often sent away as well. Since the beginning, I've had a strict rule of do not clean the living room ever. This is due to me keeping a very elaborate aquarium, 1,300-gallon reef, and cleaning products used near it can kill my fish. Because of this, I'm the only one who cleans the living room. A few days ago, I noticed a few of my fish seemed to be breathing heavily and had lost a lot of coral that was closed up. This is a very well-established tank, and it's been running for the last 7 years, so I immediately knew that something was wrong. Most of my fish are just as old as the tank, and I've had very little sickness happen at all. Fortunately, my setup allows me to do massive water changes, and I was up until 8 a.m. changing probably 80% of the water. Despite my best efforts, I lost a lot of fish. Seahorses had their own section of the tank, rays, various tangs, but the losses that hit me the hardest were my Moorish idols and a 6-foot tessellata moray. My entire tank was set up for the idols specifically. I spent over a year preparing it before I even got them. My moray, Bill, I'd had since he was under a foot long. I hand-fed him all of his meals. While I was trying to figure out what could have possibly caused my tank to crash, I noticed that the living room was clean, spotless even, and I knew what had happened. Chemicals got in the water and killed almost everything. I immediately called my cleaning lady and I lost it, telling her that she had one thing to remember, one, and it shouldn't have been possible to forget, seeing as the reason took up almost an entire wall of my house. She told me she had hired a new girl and must have forgotten to explain to her that she wasn't supposed to clean the living room and continued to ask if she had done a good job. I replied that she had done such a good job cleaning, she cleaned out my tank's inhabitants and told her that she wouldn't be returning to my home and she wouldn't be paid for the week. She didn't take that very well and started threatening to bring me to small claims court because the job was still done and done well, apparently. I basically told her to kick dirt, and she's lucky I'm only firing her and not suing her due to the thousands of dollars I'd lost due to her mistake. Everyone keeps telling me they're only fish, just buy more, or she was just doing her job. I'm sure the poor girl feels horrible enough. Maybe I'm just letting my anger and upset cloud my judgment, and I'm being unreasonably harsh. But I loved those fish. They weren't just fish to me, and I loved them all very much. So please, am I the jerk for firing my cleaning lady for cleaning?
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.